The story begins with three school bullies, led by the arrogant and aggressive Miles, whose primary pastime is tormenting classmates they deem weak.
Broken up into smaller baby.
Their favorite target is Jimmy Mulligan, a chubby and quiet boy who endures their relentless harassment without ever fighting back. Jimmy's only solace lies in his two close friends, Andy and Bobby, both fellow outcasts. Andy is fiercely loyal, while Bobby, with his more delicate demeanor, often becomes another victim of Miles's cruelty.
What deal is he talking about?
Over time, the weight of the bullying starts to take its toll on Jimmy. When his mother notices something is off and gently asks if everything is okay, Jimmy hides his struggles, brushing off her concern. One morning, on the way to school, Jimmy and his friends cross paths with Miles and his gang. Miles, with his usual domineering smirk, demands an absurd $100 from Jimmy.
$100 preventing me and my boy here from you up?
A sum he clearly can't afford. When Jimmy explains he doesn't have the money, Miles's temper flares. Just as things are about to escalate, the group notices Vinny, a tough and respected local figure, approaching. Vinny's reputation as a fighter and his commanding presence are enough to make Miles and his cronies retreat without another word. Miles doesn't stop at Jimmy. His cruelty extends to Bobby, frequently mocking him for his mannerisms in front of their classmates. One particularly humiliating moment leaves Bobby on the verge of tears, but Jimmy steps in to console him, encouraging his friend not to let Miles's words sting.
Remember what you said, man? They're just douchebags.
Later that day, during lunch in the school cafeteria, Jimmy treats his friends to a meal, piling his tray high with food. Andy and Bobby, surprised by the sheer amount Jimmy consumes, never tease him for it, choosing instead to focus on the good-natured camaraderie they share. Noticing Adrienne, a shy girl who often sneaks glances at Jimmy, Andy and Bobby try to play matchmakers.
That's Adrian. Seems nice. A little dark and spooky, but nice.
Nudging him to talk to her. Before Jimmy can muster the courage, Miles interrupts their lunch, once again demanding the $100.
Yeah, I was wondering if I could get that $100 you owe me.
A brave student in the cafeteria finally speaks up, telling Miles to leave Jimmy alone. Miles, true to form, lashes out at the student. But when an even bigger and stronger peer steps in, he backs down and slinks away. The bullying doesn't end there. After school, Miles ambushes Jimmy on the roadside, once again demanding the money.
I said I need my money.
Jimmy refuses, standing his ground despite the danger. Enraged, Miles resorts to violence, beating Jimmy mercilessly. As the situation spirals, an elderly man intervenes, threatening to call the police and forcing Miles to flee. The elderly man introduces himself as Mr. Action and takes Jimmy to his home to tend to his injuries. While there, Jimmy notices a framed photo of a younger Mr. Action in a boxing pose. Intrigued, Jimmy learns that Mr. Action was once a celebrated national boxing champion.
I started boxing when I was about your age.
The revelation sparks a fire in Jimmy.
Teach me.
With a newfound determination, he pleads with Mr. Action to teach him boxing, desperate to gain the skills and confidence to stand up to Miles once and for all. Although willing to help, Mr. Action admits that his age prevents him from personally training Jimmy. However, he promises to tap into his network of connections to find someone who can. Later, he takes Jimmy home, where his parents are alarmed to see the black eye. Hearing about the bullying, Mr. Action suggests self-defense lessons as a solution. Initially unsure, Jimmy's parents ask for time to consider the idea. A few days later, Jimmy returns to Mr. Action's doorstep with both eyes bruised, clearly in worse shape. Realizing the severity of the situation, his parents finally relent. Grateful for Mr. Action's intervention, they agree that Jimmy needs proper training. Mr. Action takes Jimmy to Manny's Boxing Training Center, a gritty gym run by an old friend with a no-nonsense approach. Manny agrees to take Jimmy under his wing, but only on the condition that he commits fully to the training. With Manny's strict regimen and Mr. Action's supportive presence, Jimmy begins his transformation, though the process is anything but easy. During one of their conversations, Jimmy opens up about Miles's continued harassment and the demand for $100. Mr. Action, ever resourceful, proposes a clever plan to turn the situation in Jimmy's favor. Instead of paying Miles the original amount, Jimmy should offer $200 but ask for a month to come up with the money. This would buy enough time for the intense training needed to give Jimmy a fighting chance against his tormentor. The plan is set into motion.
But if he waits a little bit, you'll give him $200 with his promise to leave you alone for good.
The next day, Miles corners Jimmy as usual, demanding the money. However, this time, Jimmy, with a newfound resolve, calmly explains that he's landed a part-time job and will be paid in a month. To sweeten the deal, he offers to double the amount if Miles is willing to wait. The proposal intrigues Miles, and after some consideration, he agrees. For the first time in what feels like forever, Jimmy experiences a brief respite from Miles's relentless bullying. As the days pass, Jimmy dives headfirst into his training. Manny's sessions are grueling, pushing Jimmy to his physical and mental limits. One afternoon, however, Jimmy's performance is noticeably off. His punches lack power, his footwork is sluggish, and he seems distracted. Manny, with his sharp instincts, quickly picks up on the change. When he questions Jimmy, the boy brushes it off, claiming he's simply tired. Unconvinced, Manny discusses his concerns with Mr. Action. The experienced trainer voices his worries, sensing that Jimmy's struggles run deeper than mere physical exhaustion. He suspects the weight of the bullying and self-doubt may be holding Jimmy back.
Look, I don't know what's wrong with your boy. I don't think he wants to be here.
Manny worried that if Jimmy didn't find his inner drive soon, all the training might be for nothing. Despite the setback, both Manny and Mr. Action remain committed to helping Jimmy overcome his challenges, determined to reignite his focus and guide him toward reclaiming his confidence. On the way home, Mr. Action noticed Jimmy's somber mood and gently asked why he seemed so discouraged. Jimmy opened up, admitting his frustration and doubts. He worried that all his training might be for nothing, fearing he could still lose and end up humiliated. Mr. Action listened carefully, then reminded him that effort was never wasted. The lessons he was learning now, the old man assured him, would stay with him for a lifetime, regardless of the outcome. At home, Jimmy's father noticed his lack of enthusiasm for training. Without pressuring him, he left the choice to Jimmy, but he shared an encouraging thought. Someday, he said, Jimmy would be able to pass these skills on to his own children, ensuring they wouldn't have to face the same struggles he was enduring now.
You could teach your kids someday, and they won't have to go through what you're going through now.
The words struck a chord, reigniting Jimmy's determination. Reflecting on them later, he resolved to push through his doubts and dedicate himself fully to his training. The next day, at school, Miles and his gang took their bullying to a new level, attacking Bobby in front of a crowd. Bobby, humiliated and defeated, asked Jimmy how he could possibly do anything to change the situation when even the teachers couldn't intervene. But Jimmy, feeling a newfound confidence, assured him that he had a plan. That evening, fueled by determination, Jimmy jumped on his bike and rode to Manny's gym, his energy and focus evident in every pedal stroke. Seeing this transformation, Mr. Action was thrilled, while Manny was impressed, even when Jimmy's enthusiasm caused a clumsy moment that nearly knocked over the trainer. From that day forward, Jimmy attacked his training with an unrelenting drive. Manny ramped up the intensity of the workouts, incorporating tougher exercises and elements of mixed martial arts, while Mr. Action continued to provide guidance and mental reinforcement. At school, Jimmy confided in Andy about his training and his strategy to confront Miles. Adrian, overhearing the conversation, approached him for a heartfelt talk. They connected deeply, and their friendship blossomed into a budding romance. At a friend's party, Eddie, one of Miles' closest allies, attempted to provoke Jimmy and Adrian with taunts.
Well, look who it is. Fat Boy and his misfit girlfriend.
However, Jimmy's growing confidence shone through as he stood up to Eddie, forcing him to back down without resorting to violence. Time moved quickly, and soon the long-anticipated day of Jimmy's confrontation with Miles arrived. That morning, he woke up feeling calm and resolute. At school, Miles wasted no time threatening him, warning that if Jimmy failed to keep his promise, his friends would pay the price. Miles's sneering insults were met with quiet determination, as Jimmy refused to let the intimidation shake him. Later in the day, Jimmy had an unexpected encounter in the bathroom with Vinny, the tough local who had once intimidated Miles and his gang. Having heard about Jimmy's training at Manny's gym, Vinny offered a few words of encouragement. His support added an extra layer of confidence to Jimmy's already strong resolve. Unbeknownst to Jimmy, Eddie eavesdrops on the bathroom conversation and wastes no time running to Miles with the news. Relishing the opportunity to humiliate Jimmy further, Miles hatches a scheme. Acting on his orders, Eddie contacts Glassjaw Billy.
Hey Billy, how you doing? It's Eddie. Listen, Miles needs a favor.
A notorious troublemaker with a reputation for ruthless fights, and convinces him to challenge Jimmy. Word of the upcoming showdown spreads through the school like wildfire. The halls buzz with excitement and whispers as everyone speculates about who will come out on top. Even teachers sense the mounting tension, though they remain clueless about the brewing confrontation. With a steady stride and newfound confidence, Jimmy makes his way toward Miles and his gang. Miles, catching sight of Jimmy's determined expression, realizes that his usual intimidation tactics won't work this time. Smiling smugly, he reveals his trump card, Glassjaw Billy, standing menacingly by his side, ready to fight in his place. But before the plan can unfold, an unexpected twist occurs. Vinny, always a few steps ahead, intervenes behind the scenes. Sending his associates to intercept Glassjaw Billy, he effectively removes Miles' backup plan. When the gang realizes their hired fighter isn't coming, Vinny appears, delivering the news coldly to Miles.
Your friend? He ain't coming.
With his ace now out of play, Miles is left with no choice but to face Jimmy himself. The fight begins, and Miles comes out swinging. His aggression is relentless, and for a moment it seems like Jimmy might falter. The blows come fast and hard, but Jimmy refuses to back down. Gritting his teeth, he digs deep into the strength he's built through months of grueling training. Slowly, he begins to counter Miles's strikes, weaving out of range with surprising agility and landing precise hits of his own. Even after a brutal punch to the face, Jimmy stays on his feet, refusing to give up. This isn't the same timid boy Miles once tormented. Jimmy has transformed into someone who not only defends himself, but also stands up for those who can't. His resilience and determination radiate with every move he makes, inspiring those watching from the sidelines. As the fight intensifies, Miles's frustration grows. Sensing that their leader might lose, his friends start to move in to tip the odds in his favor. But Andy and Bobby, watching anxiously from the edges of the crowd, decide they've had enough of standing by. Summoning their courage, they join Jimmy in taking a stand. Together, the trio faces off against Miles and his gang, fighting back with everything they have. The tables quickly turn. With teamwork and determination, Jimmy, Andy, and Bobby overpower the bullies, leaving them defeated. The crowd erupts in cheers as the tide of power shifts for good. As the dust settles, Jimmy confronts Miles directly. His voice, calm but firm, cuts through the murmurs of the crowd. He makes it clear that this ends now, not just for himself and his friends, but for everyone Miles has tormented.
You're gonna leave everyone alone. Not just me, not just my friends, but everyone.
Miles, battered and humiliated, offers no response. He turns and retreats, his reign of terror finally brought to an end. Watching from a distance, Mr. Action takes in the scene with a sense of overwhelming pride. Jimmy has come so far, not just in strength, but in character. Even after everything he's endured, Jimmy has retained his compassion and sense of justice. His mentor sees the remarkable balance within him, strength tempered by kindness, a combination that makes Jimmy truly extraordinary. The fight quickly becomes the talk of the school. Dozens of students upload videos of the confrontation to social media, and the footage goes viral. As the story spreads, Jimmy's courage and determination capture the attention of the entire community. People everywhere applaud the boy who stood up to his bullies, inspiring others to find their own strength. Back at home, Jimmy's parents couldn't be prouder. The worry they once felt for their son's safety has transformed into admiration for the courage he displayed. They see a newfound strength in Jimmy, a quiet determination and resilience that speaks volumes about how much he's grown. At school, a remarkable change takes place. Jimmy, Andy, Bobby, and Adrian, once the outcasts of their class, now walk with confidence and purpose. They no longer hide in the shadows or avoid the judgmental gazes of their peers. Instead, they step into the spotlight, earning the respect they fought so hard to claim. The bullying that once plagued the school is no longer a constant presence. Miles and his gang have faded into the background, their reign of terror replaced by an atmosphere of unity and camaraderie. Other students take note of the transformation in Jimmy and his friends, inspired by their courage to stand up for what's right. Jimmy, now a symbol of resilience, becomes a quiet leader among his peers. His story is a reminder that even those who seem weak or overlooked hold untapped strength within them. It's a lesson that ripples through the school, encouraging others to find their own voice and stand up for themselves and others. The film concludes with a powerful message. Strength isn't about size or intimidation. It's about heart, determination, and the willingness to fight for what's right. Jimmy's journey leaves a lasting impact, showing that even the most unlikely heroes can rise to the occasion, surprising everyone and even themselves with their strength.